Hello, everybody, and welcome back here about another episode of BSN Network. Today is Wednesday, June 8th. This is, in fact, another BSN Network podcast here today. Hopefully, everybody had a good rest of their day yesterday and is having a good day so far. Today, coming off another big night last night in the world of sports. It was a frustrating night for the Rangers. And it's kind of weird, being a sports fan, you have nights where you have perfect nights where you win, all your teams win, you feel great the next day, and then you also have nights where nobody wins, and then you have nights like last night, or even just days, or just weeks like the NFL, where you just sometimes have a week where, your favorite NFL team doesn't win, and then, if you got a baseball team in October playing, they don't win. And then if you got a basketball team, hockey team going, starting their season, if they don't win, then those are the type of days where, it stinks. And then you have nights like last night where, as a Ranger fan, you're very frustrated with the performance last night. It was terrible. It was embarrassing. And as a Yankee fan, you feel great because you're the first team to 40 wins. Aaron Judge hits another home run. LeMahieu had a great night. Rizzo got a home run. You win 10-4. Your pitching was good yet again. Bullpen held it down. And you feel great. So, as a fan today, if you talk about the Rangers, I'm going to be down. But if you talk about the Yankees, I'm very, very up in spirits because the Yankees are dominating in every facet of the game. And they get another big win last night. Now, we'll get to the Rangers and get to their just disgraceful performance that was last night. You have an opportunity to take a 3-1 series lead. You need to bounce back from that tough loss game 3. And you just come out flat, and you really do. And it just looked like one of those games that we had in Carolina, where we just came out flat. We just didn't look good. It did not feel like a playoff game. It just did not feel good. And it felt like game 2 a little bit in Carolina, and it also felt like game 5 a little bit in Carolina. Game 5 we lost 3-1, and Game 2 we lost 2-0. Those were the two games that you really felt like we couldn't get anything going in our offensive zone. The other team was just dominating us. And last night, same thing. You come out, you have an opportunity to bounce back from a really tough 2-goal lead that you blew in Game 3. You have an opportunity to bounce back, and you don't do it. So Rangers now, series is tied, and now you got to look at it as the best 2 out of 3. And you got 2 of those games at home, so Rangers got to find a way to win Game 5. You cannot go into Game 6 down 3-2. You just can't do it. Lightning are not going to be one of these teams to give that lead up because they are a very good team. They know what it takes. They've been here before. Unlike some of these other teams that maybe loosen up a little bit, Lightning will not. They know what it takes. So you got to defend home ice, which the Rangers have done a very good job of recently. But now here we stand. You take the first games of the series. Lightning take the next 2. You got to win a game on your home ice in Game 5 and see where it takes you. So we'll get to the Rangers and stuff. Mets lost yesterday. Yankees got the win. So Mets, this is the final game of the 3-game set today against San Diego. If you're a Met fan today, you just hope that all the x-rays and everything like that with Pete Alonso comes back okay. And you also hope that, Starlin Marte, I think, also left the game as well. They lost last night. But if you're a Met fan, you just got to hope that, none of these injuries are serious. And you just got to hope that Marte and Pete Alonso are all right, and they're back in the lineup in no time. But final game of 3-game set today. It's the rubber game. Mets took the loss last night. So if they get the win today, they win the series, which will be pretty solid going to the Angels, who just fired their coach, which we'll get to in a little bit. So this all kind of connects with the way things are going right now. It's pretty funny because the Yankees just swept. It's funny because the Mets swept the Phillies, and in the series later, Girardi gets fired. Yankees swept the Angels. Angels then get swept by the Phillies with a new coach. Joe Madden gets fired, and now the Mets play the Angels fresh off the manager who got fired. Now Phil Nevin stepping in as coach. As we all know, a Yankee fan's the third base coach who sent everybody home, including Gary Sanchez. So it's funny because it's all kind of intertwined of all these now Girardi and Madden getting fired. It kind of intertwines of how they've gotten fired and how the Yankees and Mets have both been in. And now Nevin, former Yankees coach, is now Girardi, former Yankee coach, fired. Now Nevin, former Yankees third base coach, is now stepping in. So it's kind of funny how all this connects, but sometimes that's how it works. So rubber game, the 3-game set today for the Mets. After today, they'll have a day off tomorrow before heading to play the Angels for 3 there, which will wrap up their West Coast trip. Yankees' second game of the 3-game set today against Minnesota. Look for the series win, and then tomorrow they'll go for the sweep. All right, so topics for today's podcast. We got 2 topics as usual. We're going to start off with the Rangers and the Lightning. Start there. We're going to start there. It's going to be tough. I don't really want to talk about it because it was such a brutal performance last night. Every time, a lot of people I know have brung it up today to me. There's a lot of Devils fans that I know, and they've busting my chops about last night's performance because it was terrible, and it really was. It was embarrassing. You go out, you have an opportunity to bounce back, and you just look. You just look flat out. It was bad. It was just bad, and Rangers got to find a way to bounce back from this. So we'll get to that and what the Rangers need to do in order to figure out, in order to win this series. And to be honest with you, it's not something that they have to do on the ice. They just have to win a game. They have to win a game on home ice, put all the pressure on Tampa to then win 2 straight, one of those being in your home building. So Game 5 is a big one coming up. Rangers Lightning will recap Game 4, though, to start. We'll also get to the Angels firing Joe Madden. Yes, news came out today. Second domino of the MLB season has fallen. Girardi 4 days earlier. Now Madden 4 days later has gotten fired. Angels in the midst of a 13-game losing streak, 12 with Joe Madden. Last night they lost again against the Red Sox. That was obviously with Nevin at the interim job. So we'll get to that. And where do the Angels go from here, number 1? And number 2... are there any other managers that possibly are on the hot seat? Is this a new occurrence in the MLB where you lose 10, 12 games in a row or you start off a season poor? It's a short leash. Now, both these managers are very in common of when they took over and the results that they've gotten. Very similar situations. But are we starting to see a trend in baseball where, some of the older guys are getting the boot, and they're getting the boot for similar reasons, right? Long losing streaks or, low expectation, not exceeding expectations, a lot of talent on a roster, not winning enough games. Are we seeing more of a short leash now in baseball than we used to? We'll get to that. We'll also get to the New York Sports Update. Like I said, Yankees, Mets tonight. Yankees, Twins, Mets, Padres. So that's good. Hopefully I can watch my sorrows away watching the Yankees before I got to watch the Rangers again tomorrow, and hopefully tomorrow it's a better outcome. But with all that being said, this is the BSN podcast, and let's get right into it. So last night was Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals between the Rangers and the Lightning. We all know how the series got started. Rangers took the first 2 at home, 6-2. And then 3-2, and then you go to Game 3. Rangers have a 2-0 lead. They end up blowing that. 3 unanswered goals by the Lightning, including one with 40 seconds to go by Palat to put the Lightning on top. They ended up winning that game 3-2. And, for the Rangers, I said this all along, right? And I'm going to go back to this, and we'll really get to the game last night. I'm going to go back to this, right? We got 2 at home. I said, find a way to split at home, at least, right? They did that. They took 2 at home. And as a Ranger fan, you were thinking to yourself, all right, this is great. We're dominating. We're getting goals on Vasilevsky. We scored 9 goals in 2 games against the best goaltender, one of the best goaltenders in hockey, either him or Igor. Argument could go either way. Both have been very good. Last night's not on Igor. None of this is on Igor Shesterkin, as a matter of fact. It's a lot on turnovers. It's a lot of what we saw early in the Carolina series is what we saw last night, and even Game 3, specifically the third period of Game 3. And that's where the concern comes in, because you wonder if maybe the Rangers are getting a little worn out. You wonder how much gas is left in the tank. You just wonder if the Rangers can still get this done, even with the signs pointing towards, like they just do not look good right now. And yet all you had to do if you were the New York Rangers was to go into Tampa, and I shouldn't say all, because that's a very difficult task, but just get one game coming out of Tampa and take a Game 5 back at home 3-1 series lead with the clinching game being on the line. Not just that, but the fact that then Tampa's got to win 3 games in a row. 2 of those coming in your own building. Now, pressure's all on the Rangers in Game 5. Even though they're at home, the pressure's on. Because if you lose Game 5 now, well, oh boy, you got to win Game 6 on the road and then find a way to win Game 7, which would be in your home building. That's a little bit of a different story. We got to get there first before we talk about a Game 7, because we know how wacky Game 7s can be, and they can completely go in any way. And we saw that because the Rangers took a Game 7 at home against Pittsburgh, and they also won a Game 7 on the road. So it just shows you that Game 7's anything could happen. It's a Game 7. Both teams just put it all out there. Best team win. Whether you're home, whether you're away, it's a Game 7. Anything can happen. Home, obviously, you have an advantage. But at the end of the day, it's a Game 7. Game 7s are the hardest games to win, right? Whether you're home or away, there's so much more pressure, especially if it turns into a Game 7 that, if you win Game 7, you go to the Stanley Cup, the pressure is even higher. The stakes are even higher. I mean, first round Game 7's one thing. Second round's bigger. Eastern Conference Finals, go to the Stanley Cup Game 7, that's even huge. So Game 7s can go anywhere. So if you're a Rangers fan, if you're the New York Rangers, you want to avoid a Game 7 because you also have to realize that Lightning are the veteran team. They've been in this situation before. They're not, the Rangers are probably the more nervous team. They're probably the team right now that feels a little bit more worried. Lightning have been in this situation. They know what it takes. They've won back-to-back Stanley Cups. They know what it takes to win a Stanley Cup championship. They know what it takes. So for the Rangers, they got to figure out a way to turn this thing around and turn it around fast because they were not able to split in Tampa. They didn't look good in the third period of Game 3, and they looked awful last night. And last night, to be honest with you, it really started early in that game. 2.5 minutes in, Pat Maroon scores, and that was the game-winning goal from there on. Rangers didn't get anything going late in the first period. They were a little bit better with pressure, but the Rangers just weren't getting anything in the offensive zone. And it's funny because they outshot, and this is what I find wild, they outshot the Lightning. They outshot them, which is wild to me. It really is wild to me. The Lightning had 30 shots on goal, Rangers had 35. So it really is wild that the Rangers had more shots on goal. But you look at, time in the zone and all that, it really is something that it was just not good. The Rangers just were not getting enough, offensive zone time. They were not getting enough opportunities. They were not getting, enough good looks. Sure, they maybe had more shots, but in terms of grade A chances, in terms of, chances that are ultimately going to score goals, I'm not talking about a chance at the top. I'm not talking about a chance where you shoot and it hits the side of the net, or where you shoot and it goes wide, or where you shoot and it's an easy block or save for Vasilevsky to make. I'm talking about a chance where, you pass it across the slot, you have a one-timer by Mika. Rangers couldn't get any of that set up last night. I think Mika might have took 1 or 2 one-timers. They just couldn't get anything set up in their offensive zone, and what we saw in Carolina is what we saw last night, where they played that dump and chase game. They weren't getting anything set up in the zone. Maybe they had they had a little bit of a run there where the Lightning were on the power play and they got, I think, a 2-on-1 chance which they missed, and I think they had then they had another chance where the forecheck came in big. Gaudreau, I think, passed it in the front of the net and they missed. So they had 2 chances on the shorthanded opportunity. But other than that, they couldn't get anything going. Now, they did score a power play goal late in the game. It was a 6-on-4. So you should score on a 2-man advantage. It's similar to a 5-on-3, except, it's 6-on-4. So you should score that. They emptied the net, and they also had a power play. And as a fan, when you score a goal, as a fan, there I was reacting all right, we got 1. Now I'm thinking to myself, all right, you got to find a way to score 2 more in 2 minutes. Now, I knew it wasn't going to happen. But as a fan, I did get up out of my seat. I did get off on my couch, and I stood up and I watched the final 2 minutes. Because I was like, all right, if they score a goal here and make a 3-2 and you have a minute and a half left, you really make things interesting. They didn't end up scoring. They really got no chances. So other than that late goal, Rangers didn't do anything. Rangers did not do anything, and they were on the power play. They were barely on the power play. Not saying that was an issue. You're not always going to be on the power play, but at the end of the day, if you can't score 5-on-5 goals, you're going to lose. And that's what happened last night. The Lightning didn't have to rely on the power play. They didn't have to. As a matter of fact, none of those goals that the Lightning scored last night, including the empty netter, was a power play. The Rangers' only goal came on the power play. Rangers have to find a way. And it's tough to find a way now because this Ranger team has been so reliant on scoring power plays goals. But when you're going up against a disciplined team like the Lightning, when you're going up against a team like that, like I said, knows what it takes, have been here before, knows how to win a championship, knows, how to win playoff games, how to be physical, the right passes in the right moments, when to turn things up, when not to, right? They know all the ins and outs of the postseason. You got to score 5-on-5. And the Rangers did not do that at all in Game 3, and they did not do that at all last night. Game 3, their 2 goals were power plays. Last night, their 1 goal came with a power play, 16 minutes into the third period when they were already down 3-0. At that point, it was just a goal for pride. And then the empty netter was put on with like 10 seconds left. They scored the empty netter. It was Palat unassisted. You're going to score an empty netter. It's going to happen. So they win 4-2. Rangers got to find a way to win 5-on-5. They got to score 5-on-5, and they can't play dump and chase because we saw this in Carolina. They were playing dump and chase. Get the puck in the neutral zone, you dump and chase. Line change. Get it? Line change. They're dominating your zone. By the time you get to the neutral zone, you got to get a line change. So you just can't get any rhythm. And it all starts in your defensive zone. And then when you can't go anything 5-on-5, it's not a good recipe. So the forecheck wasn't good last night either. Tampa's was. The Rangers got outplayed. They were not physical. They took some dumb penalties. Luckily, their power play, fought them off, but they took some dumb penalties. I really liked Frank Vitrano, Frankie V, getting in a fight because I think that was kind of showing, like, look, guys, we're playing with no energy right now. We look dead out here. It was about time he sucked something into the team now, or put something into the team. Obviously, that didn't get us up and going, but I also think, too, there's a point of it where Lightning are just, they manhandled us last night. We were soft last night. I'm going to go to a Gerard Gallant quote here. They were soft. The Rangers were soft last night. They were soft as all heck. That's just how it is. We were getting dominated in our own boards. We were getting dominated in our own zone. We couldn't get anything going in their offensive zone. They were hitting us. They were right in front of our goalie, taking whacks at them. And the Rangers were kind of just like, it's all right. Like, they didn't do anything to go back. Like, Reeves didn't lay a big hit. Now, to be fair, Reeves isn't always on while, Corey Perry's on and stuff like that. But even just laying a big hit on any guy and just in general, just to send a statement like, look, you're going to go in front of our goaltender, or you're going to hit us, or you're going to do this, you're going to do that, or you're going to talk all this, you're going to get a hit. Like, we're still here. We're still going to battle. We're still going to fight. We're going to be the more physical hockey team. Rangers didn't do that. They weren't hitting guys. They were not physical last night. And when you have guys on the other side like Corey Perry, who's been a big pain, especially to Igor, and you have, a guy like Pat Maroon, who we all know what he can do in terms of fighting and getting under guys' skin. Hit a guy. Hit him. Put a guy out there. Hit him. Send a message. Not just to the Lightning, but to your bench saying, like, look, we got to be more physical. Don't be afraid. Rangers last night they just looked afraid. They looked shaky. They just didn't look good. And it's frustrating because you take the first two at home, you look so good, things are looking so promising, and you just come out flat in Game 4. I don't want to say you came out flat in Game 3 because they did score the 2 goals, and you felt really good where you're at after those 2 goals. But the fact is, that third period was terrible. They entered that third period up 2-1, and they just looked terrible in the third period. So, like I said, not outside of the 5-on-5 goals, because the Rangers got to find a way to score those. Outside of that, being better on 5-on-5, which basically means being better in the entire game, which is really what I'm trying to get to. Rangers got to find a way to win a home game now. And they've done a very good job protecting home ice. They've done an excellent job. Excellent job of protecting home ice. And if you could protect home ice, you put the pressure on Tampa then. Because then Tampa's got to win 2 in a row. And I would tell you this. I think whoever wins Game 5, whether it's the Rangers or Tampa, even if the Rangers got to go back to Tampa with the 3-2 lead, I would say this series really tilts in your favor. Especially if it's Tampa. Because then you got to go on the road. And, we all know how that is. Got to go on the road if you're the Rangers and try to find a way to win on the road, which you've looked terrible there for 6 periods of hockey. You've gone outscored 7-3 in 6 periods of hockey in Tampa. So, series really shifts. To be honest, I could see this. If the Rangers win tomorrow night, and I do not want a Game 7 to happen, really. If the Rangers win tomorrow, I want them to win tomorrow, obviously, and I would just much rather them win on Saturday then and just take the series and move on, go to the Stanley Cup, get some rest, and wait for the Cup to start, because I don't want a Game 7. And I also don't want a Game 7. Not that Game 7s are bad, but it's just like as a fan standpoint, it's just like you're sitting there and you're, like as a fan, you're just sitting there and you're so nervous. It's just like you're so stressed out. Like I would rather just win it in 6, forget about the Game 7, move on to the Stanley Cup, let's play the Avalanche. So Rangers got to switch things, but what it comes down to, and this is going to sound boring, but this is where we're at right now in this series with it now being tied at 2 games apiece. You got to win Game 5 on your home ice. And the one advantage the Rangers do has is that they've been great on home ice, and early, and what all signs point towards this series being a series dominated by home ice. So I guess advantage Rangers because they would host Game 7 if we get there, but you got to win a Game 5. Because the Lightning looked terrible in games 1 and 2. Rangers looked much better in Lightning looked much better in game 3 and 4. Now for the Rangers, you got to make adjustments. But even more important, just win a game on your home ice, protect the Garden, then have a game Saturday in Tampa, which could be the game where you hoist up the Eastern Conference Finals trophy on their home ice. On their home ice. That's what I want to see. All right? So you got to win tomorrow night. Tomorrow, Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, ESPN. And if there would be a game 6 is Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern. If there would be a Game 7, I found this interesting. You'd have 2 days off. Sunday and Monday would be off. Tuesday would then be the Game 7. So that's something interesting. It's been every other day, but I guess they figure, look, Game 7 to go to the Stanley Cup, extra day can't hurt. Also the anticipation just grows off of that because you have an extra day to think about it. You have an extra day to, as a fan, to talk all about it, figure out ways of your team going to win. So I guess it's also added a little bit extra anticipation. But tomorrow, back in action, back at the Garden, win it tomorrow and put pressure on Tampa to win 2 straight. And one of those would have to come at home. One of those would have to be on the road again if it does get to a Game 7. But win tomorrow, start with that first, and then see how everything plays out. So got to bounce back. Cannot play like you did in Tampa. Got to bounce back. Play like you've played at home all postseason long, and that's been very, very good hockey. So let's go Rangers. Take care of business at home tomorrow night, and see how the rest of the series plays out. All right, so coming up next, we got another domino has fallen in the MLB coaching carousel as Joe Madden has been fired by the Angels yesterday. I'm going to talk about where the Angels might go from here. Are the Angels still in the conversation to be playoff contenders? Do I agree with the move? I find it very, very similar to the Girardi move, and why this move by the Angels and the Phillies, 4 days apart from each other, could be a sign for kind of where baseball is going in terms of guys are on short leashes. You're not going to get those 3 years of trying it all out. And I really mean this. You get a roster with a lot of talent. If you don't live up to expectations, you're going to be on a short leash no matter what you have to say or no matter how much you say that you are the guy. If you're not winning, you're going to be gone. That's really how it is. So we'll get to that much more coming up next. We welcome you back here up at the podcast here today, Wednesday, June 8th, middle of the week here. Getting closer and closer to the weekend, which is what we all like to see. Anyway, so second domino has fallen. Second coach has fallen in the MLB as it was reported yesterday that Joe Madden has been fired as Angels manager after 12 straight losses. Yes, you have heard that right. Joe Madden has been fired, and the Angels that started the year so well, so promising. I talked about it many times on this podcast and a lot more times on my Bubs Talking Baseball podcast, which is every Sunday. You can find that on Apple Podcasts and iTunes if you're interested in checking that out. But I talked about it many times in that podcast because if you remember, to start April and then into May, and it really into about mid-May, and then the wheels started to fall off of the Angels wagon, where the Angels were leading the AL West, Dodgers were leading the NL West, Yankees were leading the AL East, and the Mets are leading the NL East. Now, Yankees, Mets, both leading their respective divisions still. Dodgers are as well. Yankees still atop the AL East. Mets still atop the NL East. Dodgers are still atop the NL West. But the Angels are falling, and they're falling quickly. Now, they lost 12 straight under Joe Madden. Phil Nevin took over last night. His first game is interim. They lost. So they're now on a 13-game losing streak. Prior to this streak, they found themselves at a record of 27 and 17. 10 games above 500. Right there with the Astros for the division lead, making some noise. They've now lost 13 straight. They're 9.5 games out of the Angels. They are tied 9.5 for second place in division with the Texas Rangers. And they are 0-10 in their last 10, obviously. If they continue to lose, they might find themselves from being in first place to being all the way in fourth. If they continue to lose, the Mariners might creep up on them, who are only one back in the loss column of the Mariners. Angels might find themselves as a fourth place team if they continue these losing ways. And now the second domino has fallen as the Angels felt, look, it was time to fire Joe Madden. And this is kind of just a public service announcement to all the baseball fans out there that the month of April and even into May, June's really where it starts to get real, right? See, now you start to see teams create separation. You start to see teams that are legit. Like the Cardinals now, I think we're all starting to see, like the Cardinals, they can really make some noise. You're starting to see teams like the Astros, they look good. The Yankees, that wasn't just an April, in April hot streak. They're really good, right? You look at all these teams. Dodgers are the Dodgers again. Sometimes teams get off to a little bit of a rocky start, or some teams get off to really good starts and they start to fall back a little bit. The White Sox, I think we all saw them get off to a slow start, and a lot of people thought they were going to be better. Well, they're still not where they want, and I think that's kind of where you're at. That White Sox team, I think, is just a little bit overrated. I think that that's a team that's kind of a little bit overrated. I think their hitting hasn't been very good enough. Their pitching's been all right. They're just not playing good enough. And I think we're all starting to see that just might be how the trend is in the season. Not saying they're not going to make the playoffs if they get hot, but they might not be that World Series team that we all expected. Blue Jays got off to a little bit slow start. They've been much better recently. They're finally starting to look like the Blue Jays. Marcus Semien had an amazing day yesterday. 7 hits, 3 home runs. I mean, wild. First guy to do it since like 19-something. Been a long time. Had an excellent day in the doubleheader against the Guardians. But then you have the Angels, right? And they got off to a hot start in April, went into May hot, and now they find themselves on a 13-game losing streak, and they obviously felt the need to fire their manager, Joe Madden. Now, my first reaction of the move, I was very surprised. Similar to Girardi, although you heard rumblings and maybe some things that pointed towards Girardi getting fired, I was more surprised about Madden getting fired than Girardi. Because I think Girardi, we all realize, like, with all their big-ticket guys that they've brought in and all the pieces they have in place and the fact that they were still losing, and especially losing games within their own division, getting dominated against the Mets, just not winning enough games, I think a lot of people felt like, okay, it's coming. But for Joe Madden, like, you're in the middle of a terrible stretch. It's going to happen. But obviously they felt the need. Look, we're in the middle of a 12-game losing streak. It doesn't look like there's much end in sight if this guy's still the manager, and that's obviously the path that the Angels went down. And the Angels now find themselves in a situation where they've been in for many years now, where Mike Trout is having a very good year. He's been slumping a little bit, had a home run last night, did leave the game injured. We'll see how all that plays out. But now it looks like they might be in another situation where if they continue to play like this, not saying they're going to lose every game the rest of the year, but now they're below 500. If they continue to hover below 500, they're going to be way out of it by July. And you might find yourself where you thought you were coming out of the rebuild, you find yourself going right back into another big rebuild. And they got some pieces in the pitching staff. It was a really, really promising start to the year. And this is why, like, the Angels, very similar to the Phillies. Like, the Phillies had a lot of promising pieces. Girardi just did not work. Now, they've been playing much better without Girardi. They dominated Josh Hader last night, hitting 2 home runs, which is, you don't see Josh Hader. I think that was his first runs he let up all year. Best closer in baseball. I think they hit him. They won the game. They came back. They look good now. The Angels, similar situation. You got Ohtani, you have Trout, Rendon, Jared Walsh, who's in his second season. Feel good about him, where he's at. You look at the pitching staff. You obviously headlined by Ohtani. Reed Detmers. It's not a great pitching staff, but there's definitely some pieces there that could help you. And now you find yourselves 3 games below 500. And like I said, I don't have an issue with this because Girardi. I think Girardi, I saw both sides of it. This, though, I really don't have an issue with. Because when you have a star player in Mike Trout, who's been with your team for his entire career, And the fact that I believe he's played in is it one playoff game? Hasn't even sniffed the World Series. For many years, hasn't even sniffed the playoffs. When you have that big of a player on your roster, when you have guys like Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout, guys who, if they are in the playoffs, is good for baseball because you know people are going to watch, you know people are going to go buy tickets to watch them play. When you realize the expectations and you realize the talent on your roster, when you lose a stretch of games like that, it's like, this can't continue to go on. Sure, if you lose 4 in a row, it's one thing. I mean, if you lose 3 of 4, you're not going to fire your manager. If you go on a little bit of a rough stretch and maybe go on a 4-game losing streak, you're not going to fire a manager. But when it gets up there into the 9s and the 10s, it gets ugly. 11, 12, you go up against the Phillies team that obviously just fired their manager, so you wonder how they're going to respond. They sweep you. You continue to lose. The big guys that in your lineup aren't stepping up. You're just not scoring enough runs. The team looks lost. Like, it's just no energy. Like, when you're in the midst of a losing streak like that, your job's going to be on the line. And I think that's the new reality of baseball. Because I think in baseball now, and maybe in sports in general, with the pressure of the fan base and the media out there now, and even these star players trying to get these stars into the postseason, Angels trying to get a postseason berth for the first time in forever. When you have pieces like that on your roster and you lose games like that and you lose that consecutive, it's like you got to change something. You have to change it fast before it really blows up on you. So I think this might be something where we start to see more often. Now, let me be fair with you. If the Mets, for example, lose 10 straight, are they going to fire Buck Showalter? No. If the Yankees or the Mets would lose, or the Dodgers would lose 8 or 10 of 12, 10 of 12, or they lose 13 of 15, are they going to fire Dave Roberts? No. If the Dodgers lose 10 in a row, are they going to fire Dave Roberts? No. There's certain teams out there, but there's also some teams that if you lose 10, 15 in a row, you very well are on the hot seat. And if you have all the talent on the roster like the Angels and the Phillies had, and you're not living up to expectations, you're going to be on the hot seat. And I think this is the new trend we're starting to see in baseball. Like if the Nationals right now lose 15 in a row, I'm just using them, or even the Reds. If the Reds would lose like 15 in a row, you could probably make the argument that their manager, David Bell, probably out. Especially with how bad they've been this year. There's a lot of guys out there. There's a couple teams this season, the White Sox. If the White Sox really struggle this year, you wonder how much longer Tony La Russa might be at the helm. Is this something that's just not going to work? If the White Sox were to lose 12 in a row right now, is Tony La Russa's job safe? I would not say so. Aaron Boone, if that would happen to the Yankees, Aaron Boone's job safe. They just gave him an extension. The Yankees are the best team in baseball. His job's still safe. There's certain managers out there, and I'm not just saying that because it's the Yankees. I'm saying it because the Yankees are locked in there in Boone. They're locked in. But there's definitely some teams out there, some managers out there, that if the team really starts to struggle, they're on the hot seat. I think this is a new trend because instead of waiting it out an entire year and wasting a season, wasting another year of Ohtani and Trout, just using the Angels as an example, you fire it. You fire the guy in the middle of the season. You get rid of him, you forget about that, and you try to reset. And when you're in the middle of a losing streak, especially when you're in the middle of a losing streak, where you had to play the Yankees, and then the Phillies, and then then you have the Mets coming up, who are a big matchup. But you have a couple big matchups against a couple really good teams, and you just fall off, and you just throw out duds. Like, that's going to get you fired. So, I don't disagree with the move, because at the end of the day, if you're going to, a lot of these managers out there are on a lot of pressure, especially when you have talent on your roster. When you have Mike Trout on your team, baseball's not a one-guy sport. I get that. And the manager can't make the guy go up there and swing. But there are a lot of times where, if a team starts to lose, they start to lose trust in their manager. Their manager maybe starts to lose trust a little bit in his players. That's when the locker room issues start to happen. That's what happened with the Jets and Gaze. Boom, right there. We all witnessed it. Players stopped believing in Gaze. Gaze stopped believing in the players. It was an absolute mess. That's kind of what was going on, I think, in Los Angeles, in Anaheim with the Angels. They were losing a ton. I think Joe Madden, no matter where he turned, it was a loss. Players were getting frustrated at Madden. Madden was probably getting frustrated at the players. It just probably wasn't good for the locker room, and they move on. Sometimes when you get in these long losing streaks and you're not living up to expectations, you have such a great month of April, then you come out and you blow it in June, and now you find yourselves in a position just to try to fight for second place. It's a bad situation. So I see where they're coming from. And you wonder if Joe Madden and Joe Girardi are going to get another opportunity. Girardi was successful with the Yankees, struggle with the Phillies. Madden successful with the Cubs, struggle with the Angels. You wonder if it's kind of past their time. Where they go from here, it's interesting. But it's definitely interesting now. We're starting to see a trend where managers are on a much shorter leash than we're used to seeing. Luis Rojas last year with the Mets. You could have made an argument there are parts of that season with some of the moves he made that he could have been booted. You wonder now if those are moves he makes this season, if the Yankees or if he's the Mets manager still. And the Mets are, 10 games below 500. You wonder if he making those same moves if he still got a job. So it's definitely interesting. It definitely is. You're starting to see a lot of guys get fired a lot earlier than a lot of people expected. 2 managers fired already in June. That's a lot. I mean, I know it's only 2, but only June. I mean, we're not. A lot of times teams start to really make moves after the All-Star break. If you still struggling after the All-Star break, that's when things start to happen. A whole month and a half before the All-Star break and before the trade deadline? I don't know. Definitely interesting, but you're starting to see a new trend, it seems. So Joe Madden fired as Angel manager after 12 straight losses. The Los Angeles Angels are making a coaching change, announcing Tuesday that they have fired manager Joe Madden after 12 straight losses. Phil Nevin will take over as the interim manager. Now, he was the Angels' third base coach, so this joke, I guess, doesn't really work. But expect everybody to be sent home now because that's what Phil Nevin did with the Yankees. Sent everybody. I remember the wild card game this past season with the Red Sox, which I don't really want to remember because that was a brutal game. Terrible. Sat through that garbage. But that game, I remember he sent Gary Sanchez home and the ball was going to get into the infield. Why is he? I don't know. Why is he sending Gary Sanchez home? I have no clue. Can't complain now. Yankees are 40-15 playing great baseball, and I'm pumped up about it. Anyway, back to the article. Though ESPN's Buster Olney reported earlier Tuesday that the Angels had discussed making a managerial change, the final decision came as a surprise to Madden. A little bit, actually, a lot. Madden told the Athletic's Ken Rosenthal when asked if he was surprised by the move. You always rely on people in charge to read the tea leaves properly. This time they did not. You didn't even have to ask me. You can ask any of the players or coaches. They're the ones who really know. He also noted there was no dissension, no finger pointing in the clubhouse. So that was kind of what I brought up. Look, he's not going to sit there and say, oh, yeah, the clubhouse was a mess. I hated the players. Players hated me. He's not going to say that. Because also this is a guy that's going to probably go out and try to find another job. So if he goes out there and publicly says what was going on in the locker room, he's not going to get another job. But I'm sure there was definitely some issues because there's a lot that has to go wrong to lose that amount of games. Madden was hired as manager of the Angels ahead of the 2020 season. In his 2.5 seasons at the helm, he was 130-148 and never led the team to a postseason appearance. Before joining the Angels, Madden served as manager of the Chicago Cubs from 2015 to 2019, going 471 and 339 in that span and leading the team to 4 postseason appearances, including a World Series title in 2016. The 68-year-old also served as manager of the Tampa Bay Rays from 2006 to 2014, going 754 and 705 in that span and leading the team to 4 playoff appearances, including the World Series in 2008, where it fell to the Philadelphia Phillies in 5 games. While the firing means he will no longer be in charge of the Angels, Madden made it clear he would still be interested in returning to the dugout in the future. Of course, I want to manage, Madden told Rosenthal when asked if he wants another shot at managing. I'm really good at it. That's what he said. Now, 12 straight losses doesn't look very good. The Angels' 12-game losing streak began with a 7-2 loss to the Texas Rangers on May 25th. Their last win, May 25th it started. It's June 8th, and it's still going on. So just to give you an example of how long it's really been. They have since been swept in the series against the Toronto Blue Jays, New York Yankees, Phillies, and are down 1-0 in their current 4-game series against the Boston Red Sox following a 1-0 loss on Monday. Like I said, when you want to be considered as one of those high-end teams, and you lose against the Blue Jays, very good team, Yankees, very good team, Phillies, who have been playing much better since Girardi got fired. I mean, it's the truth. when you go up against those teams, if you want to be considered one of those best teams in the league, one of those high-end teams, a team to truly compete, you got to win those games. When you lose all those games and you're still losing, that's when issues really start to occur. LA has relied heavily on its all-stars, Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani this season. It was fine at the beginning of the year when they were in peak form and able to carry the rest of the team, but both players have struggled over the course of the losing streak, and the rest of the team hasn't picked up the slack. In 49 plate appearances over the team's current losing streak, Trout is slashing 114, 204, 205 with 1 home run and 2 RBIs on just 5 hits. Now, he did have another home run last night, so that's 2 home runs. I believe that's stats prior to last night. Ohtani, who both hits and pitches, is slashing just 180, 333, and 385 with 2 home runs and 4 RBIs on 7 hits and 48 plate appearances. The team is also 0-4 in his last 4 starts, dating back to May 11th, as he's allowed 6 home runs and 12 earned in 21 innings while striking out 24 and posting a 5.14 ERA. That ERA really swelled up when he went up against the Yankees. It's extremely uncharacteristic for both players, though it highlights the remainder of the team's shortcomings and needs for improvement, which it failed to address during the offseason. Angels enter Tuesday with a 27-29 record, second in the AL West, but 8.5 games behind the Houston Astros for first place. It'll be interesting to see how they respond with Nevin now in charge. Now, like I said, they lost last night, so they're 29-30 now, 13-game losing streak, and they are 9.5 back of the Astros, who are 36-20, winning streak of 1, 7-3 in their last 10. So the Astros are winning games, Angels are not, and they're in a bad situation. All right, so let's get to the fantasy baseball and New York sports update to finish things up here on this Wednesday, middle of the week. Got 2 more days until the weekend, so that's always good. Basketball tonight, you got the Celtics and the Warriors. Celtics-Warriors series tied, now shifts to Boston, Game 3. Celtics open as 3.5-point favorites. Over/under set at 213. Game comes on today, 9 Eastern, ABC. Let me check this. 3.5-point favorites. Yeah, Boston's 3.5. All right, so baseball tonight. You got Reds, Diamondbacks, Mariners, Astros, Nationals, Marlins, Cubs, Orioles, Cardinals, Rays, Rangers, Guardians, A's, Braves, Dodgers, White Sox, Phillies, Brewers, Red Sox, Angels, Rockies, Giants. Mets, Padres tonight. Mets 38-20. Padres 34-22. Rubber game of the 3-game set. Mets won Game 1 by a score of 11-5. Then Game 2, Mets got dominated 7-0. So 2 lopsided games. We'll see if tonight's any different. Chris Bassett on the mound for the Mets. He's 4-3 with a 3.74 ERA. And the Padres roll out Sean Manaea. He's 2-3 with a 3.77 ERA. The over-under is set at 7, 9:40 Eastern, MLB Network, and SNY. Yankees tonight. Yankees league best, 40-15. First team to reach 40 wins. Twins 32-25. You got Nasty Nestor on the mound for the Yankees. He's 5-1 with a 1.50 ERA. And for the Twins, you have Chris Archer, who's on the mound. He is 0-2 with a 3.89 ERA. Over/under set at 9, 7:40 Eastern on Yes Network. Yankees look for their 8th straight win and their 41st of the season. For fantasy baseball, I'm currently losing in my main league, 102-79. And I've got Chris Bassett and Tony Gonsolin tonight on the mound. Jonathan India is going to begin a rehab assignment. Willie Adames expected to be activated from the 10-day injury list Wednesday. So it looks like he'll be activated today, which should be good for him. Luis Eraz is day-to-day. Shoulder won't be included in lineup for Wednesday's game. So, and then as for my other league, I'm currently tied 84-84, and I've got going Bobby Witt, who's got me 5 points right now, and I've got no starting pitching going tonight. But in my main league, like I said, I got Chris Bassett and Tony Gonsolin. So that should be good. Anyway, that will do it for the podcast here today. Tomorrow we'll talk about. Not really sure what we're going to talk. Oh, we'll recap Celtics-Warriors, Game 3. And then we'll get to, kind of want to get to the Deebo Samuel stuff because it's interesting. Now it looks like he might show up to camp. It's just an odd situation because you hear reports that he's going to show up, then he's not showing up. He's not going to go to training camp, still wants a new extension. It's like, where are we going here? And then you still have stuff, too, that, DK, looks like he's not showing up to mandatory minicamp. And you always get this. Like, you always get guys, you always get guys that, like, you're always going to get guys that don't attend camp. But then you always wonder, like, for what reasons. And then, like, all of a sudden, they just show up one day, and they're like, oh, I'm here, this is great, we got everything settled. It's like, it always happens every year. You always have a couple of those camp holdouts. And it really gets interesting when they don't attend training camp. Because OTAs is one thing. Mandatory minicamp, that's one thing. You get fined if you don't show up. But it really gets interesting during training camp, especially once it gets into August and into late August. If you're still not showing up as you get closer and closer to week 1 in the season, if you're still not showing up, that's when things start to really get interesting. So you always get that. That's why it's interesting to still talk about it. But anyway, that will do it for the podcast. Got Yankees tonight against the Twins. Mets as well against the Padres. So you got some West Coast baseball there for the Met fans that have continued to stay up late. And for the Yankees, you got a 7:40 Eastern game against the Twins. Game 2 of the 3-game set. Look for the series win, which will set up tomorrow for the sweep. And the Warriors-Celtics tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, ABC. Celtics at home, series tied 1-1. So definitely an interesting series so far to this point. So that will do it for the podcast here today. As always, I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.